So I just want to welcome everybody to the next UpNext Foresight Sports Spotlight Series today. And we're highlighting the next generation of elite golf talent. And we're thrilled to be joined by a rising star who's already made headlines on some of the biggest stages in amateur golf, and that would be Asterisk Talley. Thank you for joining us today, Asterisk.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah, and it looks like we have a couple people attending already, so that's good. So feel free to drop in some questions in the chat, and if we have time, we'll get to some of those. Um, but I would love to start with you and ask, let's start with your journey, your golf journey. Obviously, you're still pretty young and you have a long way to go in your golf career. So kind of walk us through your golf journey if you can.
Yeah, I started like as early as when I could hold a club. I started like when I was 3 or 4. My dad was a big golfer like when I was really young. He's not as big of a golfer anymore, but he would always just take me out to the golf course and I wouldn't like really do anything. I wouldn't really like hit or anything. And pretty soon he was like, "Oh, if you want to come out to the golf course, then you need to start hitting or doing something, or you just shouldn't come like if you don't want to start golfing or anything." So I was like, "Oh, I guess I'll start." And then it just kind of stuck with me. I started tournaments when I was like 5, so really early, trying to get into that competitive spirit. And then it just kept going from there. I started getting more competitive and started practicing more, so it just kind of led from there.
So who would you say is your biggest influence in your golf career now? Is it still your dad or?
Yeah, definitely my dad has always been the biggest influence on my golf life or my career. He's always out there when I'm practicing and just always trying to cheer me on. He takes from what my coaches tell me and always just keeps telling me that, trying to keep me going, keep me motivated, and keep me in that competitive spirit at all times.
That's nice. So, what would you say a moment in your career so far that you're most proud of, and why that would be? I mean, you have quite a few so far, so
Yeah, I feel like the women's AM and the girls junior are definitely up there, but I think after that, winning a couple AJGAs was definitely big because, I was getting second and it was like, am I ever going to pull out a win? And then just like a couple months later, winning like those 3 AJGAs in a row was just really a confidence booster and something that I kind of take with me, just knowing that I overcame getting runner up those 2 times on such a big stage. And then just getting to reset and come back and get a win was really good for my career and for my self-esteem.
that's awesome. That's really cool. So, what would you say? You've obviously been playing in progressively bigger tournaments now, as you keep going forward. How do you prepare for those? And I would say, what have you learned in each one of those tournaments getting prepared for those?
Yeah, just knowing that every tournament I should treat the same. I mean, my strategy doesn't really change for every tournament. I feel like, grass is grass and it's always gonna be the same, and just kind of learning more about my game and trying to get set for every tournament is usually the same. Just trying to hit fairways and greens every tournament. I mean, course knowledge is always going to help with hitting those fairways and greens and things like that. Like, are the greens receptive or not, or something? But it always just comes down to making the course more simple and always just hitting those fairways and greens and just trying to not get yourself in trouble and not make those big numbers on every hole. So just trying to get par. And if you get some birdies, then that's even better.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny. I love your saying grass is grass, no matter where you're playing. I think that's a great saying. Good way to look at it. I've never heard that. Um, and you're right. Avoiding the big numbers is obviously the number one rule. And I always think of try not to get any three putts. I think Tiger always said that, but no, I love that saying grass is grass. That's good. So
Yeah.
let's jump forward to I guess the best part of it so far lately is the Augusta. Let's talk Augusta.
Mhm.
I mean, you played in two now, correct?
Yes.
What did it feel like the first year stepping onto the grounds at Augusta as a competitor, obviously?
Definitely starstruck, surreal. Just the feeling of Augusta is just always so different than walking onto any other golf course. And I feel like that tournament is definitely different because, you can bring some spectators on with you. And we brought some of like family and some friends. And I think just getting the feeling of them being so amazed and getting to bring them there to Augusta to not only let see them accomplish my dreams, but like they've always wanted to, walk the course of Augusta. So seeing them to get to do that is definitely motivates you to play better, to make it to Augusta, like for the last round on Saturday. But definitely, and then this year, playing such a good round on Saturday definitely is motivation to show people like I'm here for a reason, I'm following my dreams of being here and I'm getting to show the people that have always wanted to come to Augusta that like I can play well here.
Would you say that Augusta is now your favorite course, or do you have another favorite?
Oh yeah, Augusta is definitely the favorite. Ever since I walked on the course last year, it's always been the favorite course that I've played. And every time someone asks me, they're like, that doesn't really count as a favorite course, but I'm always gonna say it is.
So obviously everybody talks about the slopes there. It doesn't do it justice on TV. And it seemed like during this last tournament, this last year you played in, you seemed to be doing great on Sunday, getting your numbers dialed in to hitting the slopes, the right areas. Were you using the launch monitor, the Foresight device out there to help you, figure out your numbers during any practice rounds, or how are you using it to get prepared for your tournament?
Yeah, definitely dialing my numbers before the tournament and during the tournament was definitely big because when I played Sage Valley the week before, I was kind of struggling with my numbers, on the last round. I think at Sage, I was like overflying every green and I was like, well, going into Augusta, it's kind of in the same area, so I'm not going to be like going into a different kind of like economic part. Like I'm not gonna be somewhere where the ball is flying farther or anything. So I need to kind of get used to what my ball is doing now. So I think just kind of dialing in like my numbers right before Augusta, kind of in the Sage part was definitely big. Just putting in some grind before going to Augusta, definitely trying to figure out what each number my club was and not having to do any guessing was definitely really good.
Did you prepare for the uneven lies and slopes beforehand somehow? Because I feel like, are you? I guess what's your first question to that would be, are you a fader of the ball or do you like to draw it?
I always tell everyone I try to miss it straight, which is really like obviously that's unrealistic, but I used to be a big drawer and I wouldn't say I've ever been a fader of the ball. So anything I've my woods definitely draw more. I want to have a draw bias, but I tell everyone I try and miss it straight because if I'm trying to miss and my natural shot is straight, then it's not going to be a huge diving hook or a crazy slice. So just trying to dial in to make my numbers not, crazy off the grid and things like that. But I would say I'm definitely a more of a drawer.
So do you feel like, because everybody says you fader the ball off of a lot of the slope lies that the ball's above your feet most of the time. Do you feel like that was it more exaggerated and you noticed it and you had to really like during practice rounds you really had to figure out, oh wow, this thing it's tough getting used to this kind of a uphill lie or
I feel like at Augusta, you never know
yeah.
what lie you're gonna get. You never know what kind of slope. There's definitely no part where you're like, oh, there's definitely more times where I have uphill than downhill. It's kind of just random and you can't really place your ball anywhere to get a certain type of lie. So you just kind of have to practice every type of lie before you go there and kind of go with the flow and see what happens.
Nice. So you came out on Sunday firing with an eagle on number one. I mean, I saw it. A lot of people saw it. What did that moment feel like? How did that like? I mean, there had to be a jolt of energy going through, and I mean, that had to be something special to feel.
Yeah, definitely. It was so crazy. I mean, especially that kind of shot, that kind of tournament at Augusta was just really, really wild. I mean, I didn't see the ball go in, but I saw, there's people standing behind the green on hole one. They're like, oh, maybe. And then, when it goes in, they just throw their hands in the air and start screaming. And it's like, well, that had to go in. I mean, but yeah, when everyone threw their hands in the air and started screaming, I was just like, oh, it's cool, but it's the first hole. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I can't really get too excited with 17 holes of golf left to play. So,
that's true.
I was definitely really excited. I mean, that shot me to T1 on the first hole. So, it was kind of crazy, but definitely trying to keep my composure and stay in the moment. I was already thinking like I need to hit the fairway on the next hole and I need to just stay calm and stay in the moment and not try and think about like the leaderboard or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I could just imagine trying to calm yourself down after that. Do you have like, having situations like that, do you have any like, do you do like certain breathing exercises to help calm you down? Do you just look at the trees and listen to the birds? Is there certain things that you do to help yourself calm down?
I've always been told to like do this breathing thing like before I like putt or do something to try and calm myself down, but I've never really done it. I kind of got told more about it after Augusta, but I feel like I just try and look at it like the 91-yard shot or whatever from the fairway is same as a 2-inch putt. So if I drove the green and had a 2-inch putt for eagle, it would have been the same. So I mean, just trying to think of it like I'm two under and I still have 17 holes to play. So just trying to keep playing defensive golf and do what I can.
That's great. So then we're going to jump all the way forward to 17. You were in the trees. You had to hit a shot through a little gap in the trees. Was that your only shot that you had? Or was there another option that was probably a little more safe? Did you have any questions about what shot to play during that?
Yeah, there was a couple different options, I think. So I could have just chipped out to the fairway to the right, or I could have gone to the left. Maybe it was like a half option, but it was to the left. But there were spectators and the ropes and things like that. And I was kind of going toward the greenside bunker to the left, or kind of toward like the grandstand area. But there were like no trees there, so it kind of would have been safe. But you have to tell everyone to move and then
Yeah,
move the rope and everything. It's just like a huge process, and I was already taking kind of long to decide. So I was in between kind of just chipping out to the fairway, like hit a 20-yard shot and still have like 100 yards left, or just go through that little gap through the trees and just try and do my best. And since I was so close to the end and I was so close to the lead, I was just like, might as well just go for it. I mean, I have no other shot of making, I mean, maybe par from the fairway, but no chance of making birdie from the fairway. But so I just went for it and I tried my best. I just tried to think of any shot I can do, tried to hit my straightest shot out of there, get it up close to the green, maybe. I mean, I never thought I would have stayed on the green and made birdie, but that,
that had to be awesome to end up seeing it roll up there and then follow the slope down, and then you
mm,
made an amazing putt. I mean, still have to make the putts in those, and you did. So
yeah.
that was amazing to see. Did you have a local caddy, or did you have someone caddy for you already?
I had a local caddy from Augusta, which I had in 2024. Actually, funny story because my dad was caddying me for champions last year when it was my first year playing, and my dad was out on workman's comp that week and he kind of had a hurt back. And during champions retreat, he was like kind of struggling, no rangefinder. So he was kind of running back and forth. And he felt like he was holding the group back, like putting us on the clock and things like that because he was so behind because he was kind of hurt. And then we were just contemplating before the last round, just like, should we get the Augusta Caddy because like they make us use them on Friday for the practice round. So he was like, I guess we'll just feel it out and see like how he does. And then of course on the first hole, like we get to the ball and we can use rangefinders in the practice round. So my dad was like, oh, whenever he gives you the yardage, just like tag it after and see like how accurate he is. And it took him like 5 seconds to get the yardage from like when he walked off the sprinkler, which my dad took like 10 minutes, but he was just like right away. And then if he was like right on the number, my dad was like, what are you doing tomorrow? So we had him last year, which he was great last year, didn't really help me on the putts because that was kind of his thing. And my dad was like, "Did he help you on the greens at all?" And I was like, "Not until the last hole," because he didn't really just want to mess me up. Kind of like if I had an idea and it was like somewhere close to what he thought, he just wouldn't say anything because he didn't want to like make me second guess myself or anything. And I was like, "Oh, just on the last hole." And I was like, "Oh, does it break left?" And he was like, "No, it breaks right." And I was like, "Okay, perfect." And then I made that putt. So my dad was like, "Oh, I guess he's like a great caddy." So before this tournament this year, he was called Anwan was like, "Can we get the same guy for Augusta as we did last year?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, already had it set up that way." So
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
it had some good results both years on the last day, so it's pretty nice.
So that's great. So back to the, I guess more of the mental side. How do you, for these big tournaments, these high pressure events, or what, even if for the younger golfers out there that are starting to play in tournaments, how do you mentally prepare for like those kind of environments? Is there anything special you do, or do you just treat it as another day on the golf course, like grass is grass, like you were saying, or is there something else that you kind of have in your toolbox?
Definitely, like I said earlier, like just kind of treat it like a normal day, like grass is grass, and try and do my normal strategy of like hitting fairways and greens. And I think that's something that really helps me stay in the moment on the golf course and kind of just not think about like who's playing the tournament, what the course is like, what, anything like that. And I think those are things that I should save to look back on. Like after the tournament, I can think of like, "Oh, well, I played against these people and I did well against them," or "I played this course and it was super awesome." But during the tournament, you just have to think about like, how can I shoot a good score? And that's all you really need to think about is just how can I make par and make birdies and how can I hit fairways and greens.
That's cool. So I'm gonna jump to also got invite to play in the Chevron Challenge on the LPGA, which is a major. How was that?
Mhm.
Obviously, the result wasn't what you wanted, but there had to be. Was there anything in particular like that you saw from the professionals that you were playing with them there, whether it was practice routines or that kind of stuff? Did you pick up anything while you were there?
Yeah, just definitely how they compose themselves on the golf course is definitely a lot different from junior golf. They're always like what I aspire to be is just always calm on the golf course. They never really have a ton of emotions, which is a lot different from junior golf, if a lot of us know for sure. But
Yeah,
just knowing that they definitely take their time and they make it really meaningful. Like in junior golf, it's when people are taking a lot of time, it's just like you can just make this a lot faster and hurry up and hit the ball. But when they do it, you can tell like everything they're doing is meaningful and everything they're doing is going to help them. And they're just very composed and you can tell they know what they're doing.
that's really cool. Yeah, I could just imagine just be able to see how they're putting. I mean, whatever you could pick up so much. I could just imagine that would be really insightful for players to see. And now that you experience that, the next one that you get in, you're going to be a little more prepared, which is awesome. So
Mhm.
that's going to be great for you. So now I'm going to jump over to more Foresight technology. So what was your first reaction when you first started using a Foresight launch monitor, and which launch monitor are you currently using?
I'm using the Quad Max right now, which obviously is super helpful, super, super
Yeah.
helpful. And everyone around me always had a launch monitor, some type of launch monitor, and I've never had one for my whole career. I've never had a launch monitor. My coach has one in his academy at North Cal Golf Academy, and I always thought that was super helpful, even though like it's indoors, it helps you not have to make guesses and things like that. And my partner for four ball, Sarah, she always swore by one. She was like, "You need to buy one or anything," but we never really had the money for it or anything. But she was like, "Oh, it's super helpful for me. It helps me get dialed in before every tournament." And I was like, "That sounds like super cool. Like I would love to have one. I've always wanted one. I've used one off and on, though I've never owned one. But when I first got it, it was always super motivating. I always wanted to go out and practice and get dialed in. And I think it's just super cool. Like the first couple times using it, of course, and it's still super cool to know that I'm not guessing all the time. I'm not having to eyeball like how far it's going, what my ball is doing, things like that. And of course, it's super good with club data. I've never had to, bring out a live board, which I was super used to because I never had a launch monitor. I would always have to do things like that, which now I don't have to do. It saves a lot of time and it helps me, just get dialed in with things like that, just knowing exact numbers rather than within a certain range of numbers where it's like, oh, it has to be within like 5 yards of this number, but now I know like exact data on everything, which is super helpful.
You ever bring it out on practice rounds?
I do sometimes, yes. I try just to, especially like I mentioned earlier, if you're going to a different area, like if I from California go to like Florida or something, I really need to know like if is my ball flying farther or shorter and things like that. And courses can definitely change like with sea level and things like that. So different environmental factors definitely make a difference, which I think helps bringing it in practice and practice rounds and things like that.
So when you're practicing, let's say you're just on the range and you're working on your game, is there a specific data point on there that you're really focusing on, or a couple of them? What would be one of them? Is it like launching, or are you looking at more path? I mean, is there certain ones that you really like to hone in on?
Definitely, like, it depends on what club I'm trying to dial in. So when I was doing my driver fitting not too long ago, I was definitely focusing on launch angle and spin because I was having trouble with that last year. Like during the women's am, I would always have a diving ball and it wouldn't have enough spin, but I didn't know that at the time because, I didn't have all the accessibility that I do now. So that's definitely something I worked on with my drivers, like launch and spin. And then when I'm trying to speed train, like ball speed, club head speed, things like that, carry, when I'm trying to get farther or I'm trying to just dial in things like that. And then always when I take the time to like put the dots on and everything, I'm trying to look at where I'm hitting the ball, seeing where I can improve on things like that. And of course, path is always something when you're not missing it straight like I like to do. So just things like that and trying to dial in everything. And right now I'm trying to figure out like which club I want to put in the bag. So I'm in between like a 48, 50 pitching wedge, things like that. So I'm just hitting the balls with like those three clubs and trying to hit a bunch of balls and see what the yardages are and kind of the spin and different things like that. Which club is gonna spin off the green on receptive greens and which one is gonna stay put with the right distance. So just things like that is super helpful, not having to eyeball and then hit when you're hitting into like fairway, you don't know what the spin is. So it's just different things like that that always help me that I didn't have before.
Yeah, once you get sucked in, it's funny. Once I started using them too, you do get sucked into the data, especially when
Mhm.
you start learning, what that means, and it's kind of a language that you have to learn. And yeah, it's definitely addicting, and you kind of get down a rabbit hole. But it sounds like you have it dialed into what you know what you're looking for, which is great. Now we just released a new update to our mobile app. Have you had a chance to use that one yet with the new look and new design and everything?
I haven't. I haven't seen it yet.
All right, you'll have to just go ahead and make sure it's updated on your phone. We have a whole new studios team that kind of revamped our mobile app. It's a new look. It's the way everything's going to move. We show dispersion circles on there. There's a new setting in there called zones. So like whatever data parameter you're looking at, let's say you're looking at launch angle, you could set a zone for that. So you want to set it between, I don't know, 10 degrees to 13-degree launch. And if you hit it in that zone, it's going to show up green. If you miss it, it's going to show up red on the tile on the phone or your iPad. So it's a quick visual representation on dialing in those numbers. I also do it for distance. So if I'm trying to hit something between 100 and 110. And then if it misses that yardage, it shows up red. So I instantly know. It's a cool feature. It's called zones now in there. But definitely take a look at it. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to try that out later because I'm trying to, dial in those distances right now with those 3 clubs I'm trying to put in the bag. So I'm definitely gonna have to look at that later and get that dialed.
Yeah, for sure. And let's see. Let's go to what's one part of your game that you feel like is most improved? You might have answered this already, but that most improved since you've been using the Quad Max.
I think definitely my driver has gotten better, especially with the fitting that I did with Foresight. It was something that I had a problem with because my, spin was too high or too low, and then I didn't know where I was launching it. I was hitting it low, and then I was spinning it too much. So I was trying to figure out how I can hit more fairways, how I can hit more greens, and trying to get that part of my game a little better, trying to improve that. And then kind of fixing my wedges because those were definitely spinning too much when I played Satakoy down southward, kind of
Oh,
by
Santa
you
Fe,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah, I even though I played pretty well, I was spinning a couple off the green there. So with my short wedges, so I was trying to figure out, what can I put in the bag or what can I change to when I am playing a receptive course like that to not, spin it off the green and kind of try and get it closer to the hole. So I think just different spin aspects and different, launch aspects were definitely improved since I started using. And just kind of all parts of my game were kind of getting improved once I knew my distances and how I can fix different little quirks and things in my swing and different things like that.
Very cool. Let's go to looking ahead now. So what would be some of your short-term and long-term goals moving forward?
Definitely to win a little more this year, of course, but I mean, you can't always win. Everyone knows that, but just trying to minimize my misses and minimize, getting those high numbers as I spoke about before. Just trying to, it takes one hole to make up from a bogey and it takes two to make up for a double and so on and so on. So trying to minimize those bogeys and doubles is definitely something that I have a goal for this year. I'm putting more stats in this year, so gonna have more goals moving forward, but definitely improving my short game for sure. And, trying to win more tournaments, of course, but
Yeah,
and then I guess long term, just trying to be the best in the world, of course, trying to get to that number one spot always and hopefully just improving my game all the way up in the future to get to that number one spot.
that's great. That's awesome. How do you balance all this golf that you play with school and life currently?
Yeah, definitely tough at times. I did some homework before this call, so I'm trying to catch up as we speak. But um, whenever I miss, my teachers are super flexible. This whole Chowchilla community is super helpful with helping me balance things like that because most of them know, and we have such a small community that a lot of people play golf and are teachers at the same time. So I know like a lot of them, and they're really flexible with my work and things like that. So it is tough a lot because some of the teachers, aren't going to be super flexible and they're not going to be willy-nilly on like my work that I have. So just trying to keep up and being a good student, but also, I have to grind and do things like that, go practice, and there's only so many hours in the day, and just trying to do my schoolwork when I'm gone. And, it helps when people here think I have a normal life, so it's not always about golf and it's not always about school when I'm gone. So, it's just a balance, which helps.
Sure. Did you play any other sports growing up, or was golf really the only one?
I did gymnastics when I was super young,
Hmm.
started that super young, which I think my parents put me in for definitely to help me get some athletic ability. I mean, there's a lot of conditioning in there, so it helps you get stronger at a young age. And I played softball when I was young too. Um, Only stopped that during COVID, which was not super, super long ago, it feels like, but kind of messed up the whole community softball thing. So
Yeah.
after that, that was really when, AJGA started and things like that. So that was definitely a shutdown after the COVID thing ended, which I was just like, I think it's time for me to focus on golf since I already was done with gym and I was done with softball. So it was just like, golf is my thing and it always was my main sport. So it was pretty easy just to make that my main focus.
Yeah, nice, nice. That's good you didn't have to fight over, oh man, I really love this one over that one. I kind of
Mm,
played baseball and golf, and it was kind of 50-50. And I wish I
yeah.
quit baseball earlier and started golf sooner, but the way it is, because now it's like I'm addicted to golf more than anything. So,
Yeah, for sure.
so I guess what kind of advice would you have for any of the UpNext members watching who are trying to follow the same journey you're on? Do you have any good advice that you could give them?
I would just always say keep up on your practice. That's something that I always did. And a lot of people ask me, like, did your practice schedule change from when you were 7 or so to now? And I'm like, no, I've always just practiced for so many hours a day, but I practice every day, which is something that a lot of parents are like, that's too much to put your kid through. But really, for me, it was really fun at a young age, just getting to do something because school wasn't like overwhelming or anything. I mean, I just probably had like one assignment a day and that was about it. So I really needed something to do. And I think that was just really fun. But you do have to learn, like, I can't always spend time with friends and I can't always, have those sleepovers and things like that, just hanging out and kind of going with the flow. It's always going to be a grind since I was young, but I think that was just fun for me. I was always really competitive. So when I found friends that played golf and we always had fun little competitions, that was something that, always kept me going, always kept me wanting to practice and do things like that. So I would just say learn how to grind at a young age, learn how to, you know, always want to practice, find that desire. And if you don't want to practice all the time, then probably should find something that you're more passionate about or that you want to do more, or just, practice makes perfect, of course. And, you know, whatever you practice, that's how you're going to play, is what my dad always said. If you're practicing to mess around and things like that, you're going to play like that too. So I think just always putting the tournament mindset into your practice is always great too. And just learning how to grind is always going to help.
Yeah, that's perfect advice. I don't think you could have wrapped it up any better. Well, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. We appreciate you coming on. This was great. For everybody that kind of joined late, this will be posted on Foresight's website. We're going to have a blog post about this, so you can watch this anytime. Once again, Asterisk, thanks for your time. We look forward to seeing what you do in the future and how well you keep playing. We're going to be following along. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need anything from us.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
You too.